Whereas like when I played through Chrono Cross the first time, or even Earthbound, Mother 2.
Great games! Oh my god!
I feel like Nintendo is so tactical with making music that is easy to like stay in your head.
デザインがめちゃくちゃいい。
I read in a book that good design falls on if you can put the character in just like a flat image, you should still be able to recognize what character that is.
キャラクターはすごい有名な画家の天野義高さんとかが考えて描かれてたりとか、ドラゴンクエストとか鳥山明先生、今日は日本のゲームが海外で超人気な理由について話してみるよ。
Let's find out!
こんにちは、全人類と友達になろうと思っているミスターウジです。そして
ボルです。
エナです。
アロンです。
ゲームバイロンです。
何？
ゲームバイロンです。ゲーマーね。
Yeah.
What's this? Is this headphones?
It was my deal with it sunglasses coming on for the edit.
今日のテーマは海外で日本のゲームが超人気な理由について。イエーイ
Look at the game.
I like this topic.
I do like this topic. I'm very happy we finally got to this topic.
Yeah.
I like to talk about games.
今日はね、アロンがそういえば日本のゲームって最高なんだけどなんでその話しないのって珍しくちょっとすごいモチベーションめっちゃ高くと思ってで話をね聞いてみると日本のゲームって僕が思ってるよりは、みんなの生活に結構近くて昔はねマリオとか、今は動物の森とかあるけど変わらずめちゃくちゃ海外でも人気っていうので、今日はどのくらい人気なのかとかじゃあ実際なんでそんなに人気なの、っていうのを、外国人のみんなの目線から話していきたいと思います。それでは行ってみましょう。まずさ聞きたいんだけど、
Yes.
みんな日本のゲームってどれくらい子供の時からやってる感じなの？
めっちゃやってた。
Freaking whole time, dude.
Yeah.
If you look at it, mostly all the consoles besides the Xbox are Japanese. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you have just like you have the Sega Genesis, and you have like the whole Nintendo series, and you have the freaking PlayStation from Sony.
Right.
It's all Japanese, so of course we played a lot of the same games inside of the States as well.
子供の時何やってた？例えば。
My Game Boy Color. that was my generation. But
それどのくらいみんな持ってるの？
if you didn't have a Game Boy, you were in a cool guy at school. How else I was gonna trade Pokemon?
It was either you personally had a Game Boy or like you definitely had a friend who had like N64 or something like that.
Yeah. You would go to their house and play Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah, and so like at least one person would have Nintendo or something like that. And everyone would go to their house and play Smash Bros or something like that.
Right.
Oh yeah.
確かに昔って日本製以外のゲーム機がそもそもなかったよね。
Yeah, right. Because like I think it's changed now a bit, right? But like video games, because of like you were saying a second ago, Byron, like Sega, Nintendo, and Sony, PlayStation.
Yeah.
They games became synonymous with Japanese games, right? Like the concept of video games outside Japan didn't really exist until like the Xbox, really. Of course, there were like PC RPGs and stuff like that that were being made in the States, but like
Oregon Trail, for example.
there you go. Yeah, a masterpiece. Yeah.
Yes.
Like Japanese games was like the only thing that was available. It seemed like.
二人も同じ感じ？もうみんなゲーム持ってた周りの人は。
まあそうお金持ちと
子供の時何のゲーム一番やってた？
マリオ。
マリオ？でそれはなんか 2D のやつ。
なんか一番有名なやつ。
They're all pretty popular.
バイロンは？
Oh man, it's between Pokemon or Zelda, and that's because of my dad. My dad has like a SNES, and then he would just always like play Zelda, and then my brothers and sisters always go, "Dude, your dad's just always playing Zelda."
アロンは？
Yeah, Super Mario Land or Pokemon Blue. Yeah.
Oh, blue! You got blue?
Blue.
You got blue?
めっちゃブルー持ってる人少なかったよねあれ。だって普通グリーンとレッドでしょ？
Wait, what?
Blue, red.
It's blue and red.
Red. Yeah.
There's no blue version in Japan?
いや、日本は普通赤と緑で、それで特別版のブルーが出てたみたいな。
Are you serious? No, it was red, blue, and then Pokemon Yellow was a Pokemon 特別なやつ。
特別なやつでポケモンイエロー、まあいいやこの話は。
ポケモンかな。
ポケモン、あー僕はスマブラかな。
Ah.
The 64 version?
そうそう
で
が一番みんなで集まってずーっとやってた。
あ
今もなんか日本のゲームやってる？
Of course.
何やってる？
Pokemon, come on.
すげえキレられた。どうしよう。
I can play Pokemon, dude. I live in Japan, I have to play Pokemon.
今話聞いてみたら日本で子供がゲームプレイする感じとすげえ近い気がした。僕が子供の頃もゲーム機持ってなかったら友達にちょっと入りづらかったりとかしたからもう一緒なんやろうね、はい、ここからがね主題です。なんでそんなに日本のゲームは人気なのかみんなで話していきたいと思います。
はい
Okay, well, I think number one, Japanese games, especially like licensed first-party titles from Nintendo, are of such high quality compared to other games that aren't necessarily made by Nintendo. And so I think Japanese games just shine above the rest so easily. So like, you know, the Angry Video Game Nerd, have you heard of this?
I've heard of Angry Video Game Nerd.
So there's a lot of these like YouTube channels where they play like bad games, like bad old games, and they're always like really mad about it. And a lot of the times they're by like publishers that aren't very well known, or like even if they're Japanese or not, but a lot of times they're American companies that make these games. And all of them are really, really bad,
Yeah.
right? But very rarely will you find a Japanese game that's made poorly, especially by Nintendo. So I think that's like a big reason why Japanese games are so popular, because they're just so good, like in quality. Yeah.
実際クオリティって何のクオリティが高いんですかっていうことが聞きたいよねやっぱ。
Alright. There's so many, dude. There's so many different kinds
どう
of
ぞ
things.
どうぞどうぞどうぞ。
So-
手を挙げてください。
Fast. It's
Alright.
fast.
Okay, I think the easiest thing to comment on is the controls. The controls of a game, right? So I think Mario 64 is like a great example, right? First Mario entry, and like you're starting out, like the very first scene is like you start outside a castle, right? And you can like run around, jump and stuff like that, right? Immediately it just feels so fluid on the controls. And I think if it had bad controls, it would be a bad game, straight up, right? But the fact that it has good controls and that so much care and time was put into making Mario move so fluidly and naturally makes it just a great game out of the box.
Good UX.
Yeah,
There you go.
good UX.
Well, yeah, I mean, a very good example is a lot of Mega Man games, right? So, I mean, I know it's not about like Nintendo, but then it's still part of Japan, right? So, in a Mega Man game, they would not show you any kind of thing you're just like put into the world, but they have this very kind of a tactical way to introduce you to different enemies, right? So, if there's like a flying enemy, then it teaches you like, oh, you should duck under. But maybe there's an enemy that's like this close, but then if you like duck, you're like, what should I do? And if you press a button, you slide, and you're like, oh, I can slide now. And it continues to introduce like these little tidbits here and there over times, and then when you get to the end of the game, you start putting everything together, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I can jump, I can slide, I can do this, because the game is structured so well to teach you those things, not directly, but through like, the gameplay itself. Yeah, and I think that with Mega Man and with Mario, it's like, oh, here's a Goomba. We're gonna show you a little Goomba. Oh, you have to jump. Okay, I can jump. Okay, I can jump. And then if a Koopa, right? If you have to jump on it, and then if you leave it alone, it's gonna come out of the shell again. Okay, then it teaches you every so slightly information after information, as opposed to information. Learn, play the game. Sorry, I don't know. How's that?
ちなみにメガマンってロックマンのことよねきっと。
Yeah.
説明しなくてもコントロールがしやすいっていうね。
UX.
ユーザ
User experience.
ー？ああなるほどね。
In Smash Brothers too, right?
そう、スマッシュブラザーズって素早く倒して A したらスマッシュするじゃん。確かにそうよね。だって本気で殴ろうと思ったらさ、急ぐじゃん。
Yeah.
うってやったらピューンってなるので、あれが直感的で考えた人すごいよね。
Yeah.
はい、じゃあ次。
Hi.
熱がすごい、全部言ってくれる。は
Well, it's my topic, no. Music. The music in the games.
I feel like Nintendo is so tactical with making music that is easy to like stay in your head. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
easily remember it, and everybody like if you like go up to everybody, you like everybody knows what that is. What?
い。ハロンが喋ろうとしたのに
It's like a
申し訳ないです。好きすぎて取り合うな。
No, but like you're just saying, like I keep going back to Mario 64, but the one underground level.
The water. When you're swimming in the water.
But yeah, like that song is like it's gone past like gamers only. You know what I mean? I feel like people in like the general public know this song. Like that's how influential this game was.
What is interesting too is that they are very simplistic songs, and that's why they are easy to remember, right? Yet they are so impactful and powerful. Like you would get like RPGs like recently now made by American companies and whatnot, where they would put this really complicated background music that no one remembers.
言い過ぎかもしれんけどそれは
You know what really has a funky soundtrack? Donkey Kong.
Yo!
Dun, 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 dun. There's like a Donkey Kong rap.
DK rap, yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's so sick. I love that. DK. Donkey Kong.
ででるでるででるでる
Oh, wait, wait, yeah, yeah, yeah,
ででるでるででしょ
But in Donkey Kong 64, they like the DK rap.
There's a DK rap in 64, yes. DK. Donkey Kong.
This Kong's got style, but listen up, dude, she can drink in size.
音楽がすごい耳に残るってことね
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
もうポケモンとかずっと耳に流れてるもんね
Of course.
Right, right,
It's
right.
the same battle music every single time. Thing.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead, Paul.
いいよ
なんだっけ
マサラタウンの曲とかみんなわかるでしょ
I think the most memorable soundtrack for me is Chrono Cross. The soundtrack
Oh.
of Chrono Cross. Like that's actually like you can like listen to it like on your own, like without the game, and it'll be that good. Like, 'cause you know how like in Ghibli movies, like Isai Shijo,
Shijo.
like his music is so like synonymous with the movies, right? But you can still listen to it on its own and it's still like
Right.
really you know, great experience. Same with Chrono Cross. I think the Chrono Cross soundtrack is actually a masterpiece. It's actually so good. It's actually so good. And the fact that a game, right, a stupid game has this such great music in it is just mind blowing, right?
でしかもさファイナルファンタジー10とか、キングダムハーツとか、主題歌がもうあるもんねなんなら、
Yeah.
でそれすごくないゲームに主題歌やばってなってたよね
I just feel like one of the biggest impactful pieces of music from a video game is One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII. That one?
Dun, 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 dun.
That will always, like, as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh no,
Yeah, yeah. You can feel it though. You're like stressed out.
I know, right? Interesting fact about that song, Nobuo Uematsu, the guy who made it, he composed it by like just thinking of one part a day, and then he was just like, he's like, oh, maybe I'll add this part. Maybe I'll add that part. And it took him like 11 days.
Yeah.
He just like went to sleep, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna put this part in it. But it was just like, how many different pieces of like music is in one single song? You know, like the song. How long is the song again? Like 10 minutes or something? It's probably around. It's like a longer Bohemian Rhapsody. You know?
that's the standard.
yeah.
次
はい
Wait.
デザインがめちゃくちゃいい
デザイン
both the character designs and the background design. Like when you see Mario, you immediately know it's Mario, and it has his distinctive features. And not only, but all the characters in the Nintendo world, they are very unique, but at the same time they are easy to point out.
Easily recognized.
Yeah, easily recognizable.
I read in a book that good design falls on if you can put the character in just like a flat image, you should
Yeah.
still be able to recognize what character
Yes.
that is.
Oh, like a silhouette.
Like a silhouette,
I
yeah.
see, I see.
カービィがみたいな感じ
Yeah.
Even though Kirby's just a ball.
It's a
Yeah,
ball, but
it's
then you
just
can
a
see
ball,
the
but
shoes.
you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can see the
You
shoes,
know
and
it.
you're like, oh,
Arms,
that's
yeah.
that's Kirby, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
その昔はさバイト数が限られてたじゃん、ね
エクセル言って、
Yeah.
そうピクセルの数が限られてたから多分その限られた中でみんなが分かる感じの表現をしないといけないから、分かりやすい形の違いをつけないといけなかったのかもね、特にカービィとかマリオとか、
Right, right.
マリオとルイージとかも違い分かる
Yeah, one's red, one's green.
色今形の話してる
Can't you sense the color?
'Cause I feel like Luigi in the first Mario, he's like 1 or 2 pixels taller than his brother, so you can probably tell that it's Luigi.
Speaking of design, though, I mean, I would say my favorite series of all time is Dark Souls, including Elden. Well, I haven't finished Elden Ring yet, but like Bloodborne, Sekiro, yeah, all the Dark Souls games, Demon Souls too. Like they're all
They're masterpieces.
so good.
They're
Yeah.
so good.
So good. And the point about design is that level design, I think, is such an important thing, right? Because if you design a level that doesn't funnel the player like through an appropriate path, then the whole experience falls apart, right? So, and the other thing that's really cool about the Dark Souls games is that their way of storytelling is like through the environment and not so much through dialogue, right? And so your character, you run through the level, right, and you pick up items and interact with like NPCs, right? And you can talk to these characters and they tell you a bit more about the world, but they don't really tell you much. They just tell you really cryptic things like, and then the castle was sieged by Radagon, da, 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 and like, I don't know who that is, right? But you pick up an item and you read the description. It has all this like information about the world, right? And you piece together all these different pieces of information, right, to build your own version of the story, right? So it's really up to your own interpretation, right? And I think that's really, really cool. I don't think that not many games do that, and I think that's what that makes the Dark Souls games really, really unique in that way.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing to point out about Dark Souls games is just like the freaking difficulty of the game.
Yeah.
You know, you'll die in one hit, and then if you even get hit, you'll be poisoned and you're still gonna die.
Yeah.
You know, there's like really, really random attack patterns that you can't really predict that are going to happen after the 5th time you've died.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if you die, it's your own fault. Because you know, there's some games it's like that was so cheap, like they hit through a wall or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. But every time you die, you screw up. It's your own fault in Dark Souls. So like you have no one to blame but yourself.
Exactly.
So life lesson here: you're responsible for your own actions.
ファイナルファンタジーとかもさ、キャラクターはすごい有名な画家の天野義隆さんとかが考えて書かれてたりとか、ドラゴンクエストとか、鳥山明先生とか書いたりしてるから、そういうところのキャラクターのこだわりっていうのも強いよね。
Details.
そうそう。はい、次。
How would we hear? I think that stories are actually a very, very good point of Japanese games. You know, I mean, we've talked about a lot of the different features, but an overarching story that actually gets you into the game, it makes the game very memorable even afterwards. Especially some Call of Duty games, their story just like really like falls flat, or like it's like if you make a person that is just cool, and then they don't have like a weakness to them. It's just like it's nothing. It's like okay, like they're cool. What next?
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
One of the stories that is very, very good is Chrono Trigger. That is arguably the best JRPG to ever exist on the planet, because, well, of course, all the other factors included, but the story is just, it warps you into a world, and then the princess, you have to go back in time, and then after you found the princess, it's like she looks like the queen that was the queen back in the past, and you're like, wait, what? And then this frog comes out, and he's like the knight, and then you go to the future, and then you go to this robot, and his home is destroyed, and then you go all the way to the past, and you're with like dinosaurs, and like it's a very, very well-paced story that always keeps you on the edge, and there's no like, you know how like in games, like the most annoying thing that I think is like following quests. You know, so like you just have to like follow an NPC and they walk like this slow.
Oh, brutal.
And then you're like,
yeah. You like hide behind a wall. And then
you walk around the NPC.
Yeah.
I think in Chrono Trigger they did not have any kind of like drag in their story at all whatsoever.
Yeah, I think like the thing that these like old JRPGs did really well is that they actually had like a story that was laid out in front of you, and they pulled you along at a pace that was appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Because like, whereas I think the trend now is to have like open world RPG, open world, giving freedom to the player, right? And yeah, if you give a lot more freedom to the player, it can be cool, I suppose. But a lot of times they fill up the game with like nonsense quests like follow this guy, or like find this item, or get this thing, bring it back, and that's no fun, right?
Right.
And I'd much rather be in like an actual story, an actual narrative, and participate in the environment, and participate in the story, right? And I think that's what these JRPGs did really, really well back in like the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation era, right? Like there's no other game like Final Fantasy 7, 8, or 9, right? Like no. Yes, you know what I mean? Like that's just you can't beat that. You can't beat that.
No.
あれはね
Yeah.
好き僕の勝手なイメージだけど、海外のゲームってアクションゲーム結構多くない？
Yeah.
That's like the main focus.
そう、
right?
なんか拳銃でバンバン撃ったりとか、
Grand Theft Auto, you got
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed. Oh, Halo's pretty good. Yeah.
そう、なんかストーリーでなんかその映画を見るみたいな感じじゃなくて、なんかここにポツンと置いてその敵が襲ってくるから倒すっていう、なんかすごい瞬間的な楽しさみたいなのを大切にしてる気がして、別にこれが悪いってわけじゃないけど、
Right.
でも日本はもうちょっと流れみたいなのがあって起承転結みたいなこのストーリーを味わうためだと思うよね、そのゲームっていうのが。例えばさ、そのさっき言ったファイナルファンタジー9、盗賊が一国の王女を助け出して、ネタバレ大丈夫かな、まだやってる人いるかもしれないその王女様と、結ばれるみたいな話なんだけど、それってすごいさ、なんかおとぎ話みたいな、もうストーリーがさすごい作られてんのよ。ラピュタとか見てるみたいな気分になってくる。一緒にやってたらもう、映像が綺麗っていうのもあるけど、感情移入して自分がこの主人公だって思って、すごいね、すごい熱中してできるよね。
Right. And so like, especially like Final Fantasy 9 or even 7, I think is even worse for this. Or even before that, like the Super Nintendo games, they're all like pixelated, right? They don't have the greatest graphics, right? So you can't be dazzled by like the shiny visuals, right? You have to, like the story itself has to be good enough that you want to play it, kind of thing, right? Like I played Red Dead Redemption 2 maybe 2 years ago. Great game, beautiful game, right? But I think I was more impressed by looking at it than I was actually playing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like when I played through Chrono Cross the first time, or even Earthbound, Mother 2.
Great games! Oh my god, those are such good games.
Yeah, like going through Earthbound or Mother 2 for the first time was hilarious, right? It's such a silly looking game. It doesn't look, I mean, it looks like childish and kind of fun, but like you're not going to be dazzled by its graphical prowess, right? It's like the story itself and the characters are funny and the dialogue, like everything is so sharp and witty that you want to keep playing it, right? As opposed to getting some sort of like dopamine hit.
Kill!
Exactly. Yeah.
ファイナルファンタジー10もめちゃくちゃストーリー良くて、水のねシーンがあるんだけどみんな知ってるよね。ほんと最高なのよ。
Right, I think that's the thing. Like these like Final Fantasy games, they're so emotionally impactful. Like when Aerith. When Aerith was killed in Final Fantasy 7. Like when that first happened, I was like, no, like they can't do that.
Phoenix down, it's not working!
Right, like, you can't just like kill off a character like that. I was also mad because I leveled her up a lot and then she just died.
That sucks. There's like an ongoing joke where it's like, don't level up Aerith, just put nothing on her.
And like the fact that like a video game can affect you emotionally is like, it seems almost not possible in some ways, right? Because I think especially back like several years ago, video games were just seemed like casual entertainment. You just like, you jump around, you kill things, whatever, right? But then because of Japanese games, because of Japanese RPGs that have this really, really emotional component to it, especially Final Fantasy, right? Did games become taken more seriously?
はい、ということで今日は海外で日本のゲームが超人気な理由について話を聞いてみました。もっと喋りたいことはたくさんあるけど動画終わらなさそうなのでそろそろ終わろうと思うけど、でもみんなの国でさ、全部は喋れないけど人気な他のゲームってあったりする？
ソニック。
あ、ソニック。
ソニック・the Hedgehog。
ソニックね。
ソニックって日本より海外の方が絶対人気あるよね。
ルーマニアの場合はまずソニックのアニメも作られたゲームからで、そのアニメがルーマニア語の吹き替えでテレビでやってた。でそれを見て、これもともとゲームだったって人が知って、それでゲームをやる人も増えてきた。
はあ、意外だわ。はい、次。
Zelda Ocarina of Time or whatever.
時のオカリナね。
Yeah.
いいよ、こうやって合わせて演奏するやつ。はい。
Has anyone played No More Heroes?
Oh yeah.
No more heroes.
No more heroes. You play this otaku named Travis Touchdown, and you have a beam katana, and you like slice people down, and you killed your best friend who ran this anime shop. I don't know. It's a really good. It's a really good.
No more heroes.
あともう一つルーマニア含めて多分いろいろな海外で有名なのはボンバーマン。
最高やんか。みんなでできるさバトルゲームの最高峰だと思うよね。
Right.
マリオはさなんか対決って感じじゃないじゃん。なんか一緒にクリアするって感じだけど、ボンバーマンはもう殺し合うからね。
Yeah, it's simple.
Yeah.
I really miss that about games, right? Like the split screen or like playing with your friends, everyone coming together in one spot, they're playing together, battling. And that was that's great. Yeah, I miss Bomberman. Yeah.
I love the part in Bomberman when like you try to kill your friend like to win the game and you end up killing yourself.
やったあれ爆弾置いてもう逃げられなくなる。皆さんがおすすめしたいゲームがあればコメント欄までお願いしますと、僕らにトークしてほしい話があればコメント欄にそれもよろしくお願いします。それでは次の動画でまたお会いしましょう。バイバイ。チャンネル
登録
く
お願いします。